Long Way Down, which is an adaptation of the Nick. Did you ever read the Nick Hornby book, Long Way Down? Because I didn't.
Yeah,
did you?
Yeah.
Okay, fine.
It's set up in North London, surprisingly.
Fine. So I will come back to you in that case in a moment, because I need your opinion on something. So Long Way Down starts off with Pierce Brosnan as a character who is about to commit suicide. Their life has gone terribly wrong. He was a daytime TV star. He was arrested, and as he says in the opening voiceover, I said to the judge, she told me she was over 18, Your Honour. Consequently, his entire career has fallen apart. He's had a scandal, so he finds himself up on a roof, about to throw himself off, when suddenly somebody else turns up, also intending to throw themselves off the roof, and then somebody else turns up, and then by the end of the opening act, there are 4 people on the roof, played by Pierce Brosnan, Imogen Poots, Toni Collette and Aaron Johnson, all of whom have gone there to throw themselves off. Having all met up, they decide that probably throwing themselves off together now is not a good move, and they sort of start to become a group. Here's a clip.
Okay, one-word answers. Everyone has one word to explain why they were up on the roof in the first place. For example, Martin might say notoriety. Maureen might say loneliness.
I'm not lonely.
Tell that to your cats.
I don't have cats. I was up there because I felt helpless.
Helpless? It's a very good adjective.
Are we not fitting into your preordained boxes, Jess?
Actually, you fill your one marvellously, Martin. Was prison fun?
You really believe you have an answer for everything, don't you?
Pizza boy.
JJ.
Why might Pizza boy want to die?
What would be your reason, Jess?
My reason would be love. Chaz, he spurned me. I'm a spurned woman.
So as a result of their conversations, they all make a pact, which is that they're actually not going to kill themselves until the next time in which everybody sort of traditionally does this, which is Valentine's Day. So they all agree to essentially stay alive for a certain amount of weeks. And during the course of that time, they become variously personally intertangled. Now, the thing with it is, all the time I was watching it, I was wondering exactly what the tone of the novel is. In the case of the film, it does have a very difficult job in deciding just how to play the sort of tragicomedy, because essentially it is a group of about 4 people. It's a film about a group of people who are, for various reasons, suicidal, and it's finding sort of humour in that situation. And it is, I have to say, certainly on screen, completely inconceivable that any of these characters would act in any of these ways. I mean, they're whether or not watching them is entertaining is one thing, but in terms of whether you believe in them, whether you believe in the pact they make, whether you believe in the way the action plays out, certainly as it appears on screen, I don't for 1 minute. What I do think is that there are some very strong performances in the Pierce Brosnan particularly, who I'm becoming in sort of later life a huge fan of. It was interesting because one of the things that, as a result of the Professor Her indoors doing this paper about Later Love, was going back and looking again at All You Need Is Love, which is that fantastic film with Trina Durham and Pierce Brosnan, in which he is really brilliant. And, Matador a few years ago. And I mean, even Mamma Mia, the fact is he can't sing in Mamma Mia, but it was an interesting late life choice and turned out to be a really big hit movie. And watching him in this, he is wrestling with a very difficult situation, because you're thinking, actually, this isn't working. As far as, on screen is concerned, it isn't working. The balance between the comedy and the tragedy isn't coming together. And yet, he is doing his very best with a difficult role, and he's doing it rather well, and he is a joy to watch. Imogen Poots is basically doing that Imogen Poots kooky thing, but nobody does Imogen Poots better than Imogen Poots does. To some extent, Toni Collette is left with a short straw, because she has the most serious story, which is that she's a mother whose child requires 24-hour care, and this has kind of taken its toll on her. But actually, that's not the thing that's depressing her. What's depressing her is that her life isn't what everybody else's life is, and in fact, the thing that she lives for, and the thing that is her raison d'etre, is her relationship with her child. So, in many ways, her story is the one which has the greatest depth. And meanwhile, Aaron Paul is somebody who's a failed musician who declares at the beginning that he has a terminal illness, which is then sort of later called into question. And all the time I was watching it, I thought there are individual things in this that work, individual bits of the performances that work, particularly Pierce Brosnan. There's also one quite nice scene in which they go on a horrible daytime television show, and Rosamund Pike does a very good version of that sort of needling daytime presenter, essentially pushing somebody in order to get them to cry, to talk about their personal tragedy in a way which is completely... And it has those nice touches, and you can see in it touches of. I mean, I'm a fan of several of Nick Hornby's books. I think that he has a very good way with dialogue and a very good way with observing the foibles of a certain group of people. But all the time I was watching the film, which I have to say in the end doesn't succeed, despite the individual good elements in it, Pierce Brosnan being the strongest one. What I wondered was, how does the tone of the novel work? So this to ask you this, Simon, having read the novel
a long time ago.
Okay, but does it manage the balance between comedy and tragedy?
Well, as I recall, like I said, it was a long time ago when I was interviewing Nick. I just remember it being very original. The basic setup which you've described is...
And the setup is the same.
Is an original premise. Yes, exactly as you described it. It was a very moving and very real and very funny book in the way that Nick Hornby's books are. And I can't remember whether I came to a conclusion as to whether it actually finally, triumphed over getting that balance particularly right. But it was just a classic Nick Hornby book, is as I recall it, rather unhelpful. I'm afraid.
But as far as you can remember, in the book, you do believe in the situation. You do believe that 4 suicidal people accidentally meet on the top of a tower block and decide to make a pact that they won't, that they will stay on this side of the Great Divide.
Well, that's the premise, isn't it? I mean,
I know, but do you for 1 minute believe in it in the book? Because in the film, I don't. In the film, I didn't believe in the situation at all. But that's not to say that I didn't enjoy parts of it, and I didn't enjoy the performances, but I did, because I've been watching Pierce Brosnan. I think Pierce Brosnan is really becoming a terrific actor. At this point, I'm sure he's thrilled to know that after all these years, I think he's becoming a terrific actor. Yes. Give him another 20 years, and he'll be fine. But then, look, Bruce Dern perhaps did his greatest work in his 70s, and Robert Redford just gets better with every movie, and he's 107, isn't he?